What's good, J Boogie in full effect mode. Bun down is the sound. You know how we do. This is the Lounge Presents podcast, and we are sitting here today with a gentleman that goes by the name of the Honest Guy. Yo, what's good, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's great to have you in the lounge space once again. It was funny coordinating our schedules.
Yeah. There's a lot going on, but we're
I
here,
mean, yeah, but right, but that's the life of a creative, though, right? I think
Yeah,
everything's a juggling act, and it's all about
yeah,
keeping all the plates spinning,
yeah, exactly. And
right?
sometimes things happen, and you don't know what meetings will push you along. So every time something comes up, I have to kind of, take a hit sometimes in other areas just to make some other arrangements.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Now, we are here today to talk a little bit about your come up. So we're gonna get started with that.
okay.
How were you introduced to music?
Uh, Music has always been something that's been around me. I think I've always gone ahead and searched for it in terms of music. Nigeria, I'm Nigerian, and Nigeria is a very musical
Yes,
community.
yes.
Like it's obvious now with the growth of and development of Afro beats, but Nigeria's always been ahead. Like, I've been listening to like Nigerian funk lately, and this is music from the 70s. And just to
Hmm
show you how up to the times Nigeria was, but just everything we do is very musical
hmm
and melodically, even some of the languages are melodic. So, and I feel like the average Nigerian has some form of connection to music. But for me, in terms of the music I make now, R&B, I've always had to search for it. I've always had to see, I just feel like the life just kind of aligned itself, especially with the rise of the internet and just being able to like visit stores. I've always been the perfect child who was gravitate to the music channel, growing up, just MTV channel or just like soaking music in. So, and this is goes back to me being like 3 years old. So,
right. So was R&B the genre that was predominantly being played in the home when you were growing up?
no, in the home, it was more like African music, um, and African music and a bit of like reggae, Lionel Richie,
Right.
it's I guess R&B in R&B, you can say R&B, but it wasn't predominant in the household. There was more
hmm
me always searching for it. It's almost I
Okay.
just always had the affinity for it, and it never left me.
What R&B artist can you say probably was one of the first to really capture you, kind of hit you over the head and say, "Yo,
Ooh, let me see. I'd have to say either like it's unfortunate right now that I mean the way things have turned out, but I just can't deny what my influence is. And the first person to really hit me was R. Kelly. So
okay."
yeah, but I can't deny what is his importance was to music. His life I don't agree with and he gets what
Right,
he deserves, but if
right.
that was the biggest influence, it was that Maxwell, um, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey. Um, I find I have a big love for neo soul now, but I wasn't really that interested in it growing up.
Right.
And I think as an adult, I started to like fall in love with it. But
Mhm.
in my younger days, it was more the big, massive sounding music. Um, yeah,
Now, I did not expect the name R. Kelly to be brought up
yeah,
today, but since you did, we're just going to touch on it for a second. And
yeah,
I think, I mean, it's not uncommon what I'm about to mention. It's no secret that the community is divided when it comes to recognizing Robert Kelly, the artist, from Robert Kelly, the human. And
yeah,
I think personally, out of everyone I know, it's split 50-50. you
Oh,
know,
of course, of course.
like literally split 50-50, like, yo, I'm not fucking with him no more. And then on the other side, yeah, I still fucking play it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
literally
No,
split down the middle.
it is. But you cannot take away the greatness of these people. It doesn't matter like what they do in their personal life, they deserve the
Right.
consequences for. So I'm not carrying the free R. Kelly cape at all. But
Right.
he is a great he's one of the most talented R&B artists, songwriters of all time. You can't it's just not something you can take away from him. I just compare it to like if a great president had the same kind of accusation. You can't take away the fact that he's a great president or a great electrician or a great scientist. And now, if talking about the ability to listen to him now, I think that's a totally different conversation, and that's up to like the listener. But I think in just being objective of for R&B and what it means to write songs, it's undeniable, you know.
And on top of that, if we're going to be completely honest, it's not like the history of music has not been littered with,
Oh yeah, of
I
course.
mean, come on, like
And movies,
from
yeah,
time dial,
yeah,
right?
exactly,
Behind the
yeah,
scenes, enough shit has happened behind the scenes from time.
exactly,
He's not the
yeah,
first. He's not the first,
exactly. Not the
right?
first, probably won't be the last. You know,
You know,
it's just human beings.
hate to say it, but that's probably true. But
Yeah,
you know, the art that they create is something that they felt they wanted to share with the world, and you know, obviously he's something he had to share,
yeah,
um,
and yeah,
and it's undeniable. You can't deny that he could write a hit.
of course, of
Like, let's
course,
who can? I mean, it's all in black and white. You know, the receipts are there. He can
yeah,
create a hit.
yeah, and
It
that's
is
what
what
it
it is.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for
So
me, it's sorry, good.
so that being said,
Yes, of course. Let's move on. Yeah,
when when we're looking at influences, you also
yeah,
brought up Maxwell, which I found
yes,
interesting because
yes.
I think that influence is very obvious. What is it about Maxwell that captured you?
I think for me, it was just that vulnerability. You know, I
Mm,
think it's when you hear Maxwell sing in a falsetto, he can sing in a normal baritone-ish kind of voice,
yeah,
but there's a vulnerability in when he sings this woman's work
yeah,
and he
yep.
sings it with that falsetto, that high falsetto. Like it's just, I think for me, it's the vulnerability. I think I've always been touched by artists that are very vulnerable in
Mm-hmm.
their work, and I think it's part of what almost led me to give myself the name The Honest Guy as an artist. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
not saying I don't lie, but I always wanted to give myself a name that gave me a brand that I have to stick to. You know,
Right,
my
right.
brand should I always wanted to be vulnerable and to talk about topics that are not necessarily the things that paint me in the best light or paint me as this alpha person,
Mm-hmm.
but just as honest and true to me. And you know, hopefully I can be. It's also representative of a lot of people. One of my favorite artists also and influences is John Mayer.
Okay, okay.
You know, we're pretty much
Ooh,
from
plays a
opposite sides
mean
of the,
guitar.
huh?
Plays a mean guitar.
And it's also very raw and vulnerable in his records. When you listen to like
Mm-hmm.
some of it, it's not. I always say he writes songs in the gray, so he's not just saying, "Hey, I love you. Hey, I hate you." It's always something in the middle. You know, he has a
Right.
song called
Yeah.
"City Love," and what it's like to date somebody living in the city and how dating them, you kind of like encroach in each other's space. That's a song he has. Or he has a song called "Half of My Heart," you know, waiting on the world to change, or like youth or daughter, like those some of those songs are so vulnerable and so relatable, but they're so rich and potent. And I think Maxwell, I like it because it's vulnerable. Like vulnerability is something that that sticks out to me when I'm listening to music.
I hear that. I hear that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you bring up the whole idea of vulnerability with the recent conversations going around right now about toxic R&B. You're
Yeah.
familiar with, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
This is the conversation of the day right now. And toxic R&B. I don't know how you personally view the new subgenre of toxic R&B. But I think one thing that you can look at some of these joints and obviously see a vulnerability.
Yeah.
You see a lot of vulnerability being expressed because a lot of it's coming from obvious pain.
Yeah, of
You
course.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious what your thoughts on the current conversation of toxic R&B.
I think there are people who do it well, like
Mm,
Brent
mm, mm,
Fayez, because there's almost this like originality to it, right? It just feels like that's him and that's the lifestyle that he has, right? But I think the problem is when you see when the story is not believable.
right.
And I think um not to I don't know what like his life is like, but when I listen to like the Division record, I don't know, maybe it's in the writing, but it just didn't seem believable to me. And I think that's
Right.
where the clash came from, because there's a lot of R&B artists that are making the same toxic music. I
Yeah.
just think it's a shock to the world because sometimes it doesn't sound as believable, and it doesn't sound believable coming from him. But maybe that's just a branding thing also, right? Because there's other people like Ty Dolla $ign that essentially make toxic R&B, But for me, I think I try to stay away from that in my writing, because number one, it's not true to me, and I'm
Right.
not somebody who's out to like, I don't share the mentality when I'm dating or in relationships to try to hurt someone.
Right.
A lot of times
Exactly.
people get
Yeah.
hurt,
Exactly.
but
That's not what we're
it's just
trying
in
to
my,
do.
yeah. But if that happens, it happens, and I'll write the song from that perspective of it happening, but not as like my everyday life. The
Yeah.
music kind of spills out, and sometimes even people sing about love, and it's not believable too, because you know that this person doesn't relate. So I think it's very important in music to have some level of like vulnerability and relatability in your music. So whether that's toxic or not, people gravitate to what's real.
True that. True that. Now you were obviously drawn to R&B.
Yes.
Now we for those of us who fell in love with music and or rhythm just in general at a young age, I think we all know that it's something that's going to be around with us probably for the rest of our lives. But
Oh, of course.
we're not all going to be able to pick up a mic, pick up a pen, and pick up a paper and say, I'm going to write music now.
Yeah.
So how did you know that there was something in you that you wanted to express?
I just think for me, to be honest, I read this book called The Alchemist, and it changed my life. And it's all
Okay. Okay.
talks, yeah, and it pretty much talks about like how you follow your omens. And I
Right.
think that's pretty much been it. My journey towards like R&B was not because I didn't, there's kids that wake up and dream of being superstars, and
Yeah.
um for me, it starts and ends with the music. Like I've always just been drawn to it. I listen to R&B when I'm working out, when I go running.
Right.
It's hard for me to like when I take music out of my ears and I'm listening, I'm always humming. And even when I started singing, I was just praying that I was a good singer, that I could pass it enough. And then I think a couple of things started happening to me emotionally as a teenager, where I was going through a lot of heartbreak in high school leading to university. And I one day I picked up a pen, and no, not even a pen. I think I just wrote on my phone, and I wrote
Right.
a song, and I recorded it, and it sounded good enough, especially for my first song. And it just became this almost a drug. I kept doing it every time and every week. And I remember I wrote this song called Herapatra.
Okay.
And Herapatra is I guess she's an influencer in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
She's a relatively known influencer in the city. And I remember seeing her in a mall and being like, I'm going to go home and write about her. And I wrote a whole story based on somebody I've had it like maybe like a 5-minute conversation with her in my life, but nothing more than 5 minutes. But I almost wrote a love story about the situation that never happened. But that kind of like, that was the moment where I was like, okay, I can do this, and I can, and and there was times where I'd be at work and I'd have to take my time away from meetings just to record voice notes and ideas. And it just became, I felt like I'd be kidding myself if I never tried, and I didn't want to live a life of regret. So yeah, here am I.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned the voice notes and writing in notes. Are you the type of creative who, when these ideas come, you do have to, put pen to pad right away so that you don't forget that idea? Or are you the one of the lucky ones, the lucky creatives who doesn't have to write shit down, and it's always, they're never going to forget any idea they ever come up with?
Yeah, so I think I've only ever written a song pen to pad once in my life. Every other song I've written has pretty much been, I listen to an instrumental and I play it at least 100 times.
Right.
And at some point when I start the song, all I might have is just a rough melody. And then the more I play it over and over again, by the 20th time, I'd have the first verse, maybe all the hook, and then I keep playing it until I finish it. And that's just how it always happens. And so when I have a melody, I will go on my, I just put a voice note. And it's funny because like this is my, I don't know if you can see properly, maybe not. Yeah, so this is just voice notes.
Yeah.
For days. I could keep going and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So all of that is piece of a song, or bits of pieces of song. So I keep voice notes to just help me. And sometimes it's weird. My friends are kind of okay with it now, because sometimes we'd be at like a party and I'd have to be like, everybody keep quiet, let me just add this melody. Or I'd be on a date and I have to and something would pop up in my head and I would have to stop the day and hum something real quick, just so I can remember it for the song. Because a lot of times I mourn for the songs that I wrote but never put down, because I forget or I get distracted.
Yeah, that's definitely the worst part.
Yeah.
I think one of my biggest problems is not getting ideas down as they come, because I can honestly say I've lost a lot of good ideas just because I was too stupid to just pick up my phone and go, just say what it is, or thumb it in.
Yeah.
Because it's a great idea.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same way with me.
And then 5 months later, that same idea you suddenly remember because someone else had the same idea, but pulled the trigger when you didn't. Oh my God.
Or you see the idea somewhere and you're like, man, I thought about that at some point, but I just never put it down. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, when you knew that you were starting to take it seriously, how did your family react to you saying, hey, guess what? I'm going to go do this?
I think my parents, surprisingly, they took it well. I just think, because I grew up in a strict African household, but I've always gravitated towards music and some. I've always been an insecure in a way, because I at some point my only goal was I just want to be in the industry, so I just want to manage an artist. So I learned a lot about music. I learned a lot about melodies, and then when I started writing, I wanted to write for other artists, and it just became difficult because a lot of artists were like, I like the song, but lay it down for me. And then as I was laying it down and I sent it to people, I realized that it was taking so long, and I'm writing about vivid stories about my life. So it just felt like I was giving them. But just back to my parents, they were, I think they just kind of clicked to them that this is a consistent thing in his life. And I think me sacrificing a lot of luxuries for my life and a lot of pleasures for myself on behalf of music just kind of made everybody realize that I'm not trying to be an artist so I can live a different kind of life. You know, I'm an artist because I love music and I love writing songs, and sometimes they listen to the music too. So yeah, I remember my mom listened to one of my songs and she ends up crying.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, because she was like, because there was a point in time where I wanted to go to music school and she stopped me for it. And she just felt like, man, like maybe I should have let you go. But it's not, I think because of that resolve, I think she's become like my greatest supporter, you know?
That's wow. I mean, really, that's as a parent, I can see exactly where she's coming from with that. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Because ultimately, your parents are always, they really just want the best for you. That's all.
exactly. Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's really all
Yeah.
it comes down to. That's all.
Yeah. And even with me pursuing this journey, I can see what, like how, if I had a child, I probably wouldn't want them to be in the music industry as it is right
Right?
now,
Especially
unless they
what you
had the
know
same,
about it.
yeah, there's a lot to know.
Hmm.
It's a lot of times, not a lot, more majority of times it's a lonely road, and it's a system that kind of hits at your self-esteem because can make the best music, but you still have to, there might be other things, you know, in back in the day it was being a celebrity, now it's being a TikTok superstar, you know.
Yeah,
Like it's,
yeah,
yeah, so a lot of times you can be so like you can it's very easy for people to almost want to give up, but for me, I'm just grateful for the journey, you know, so far,
mhm,
and how things have been, you know, because there's been a lot of progress and I do it all myself. I have no manager or no kind of system behind me, but I've been able to, you know, get some headway more than like as much as my peers who are have some backing behind them. So I'm grateful.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely hustle. You know
Yeah, it
this.
is.
You know
Yeah, of
it's
course.
definitely hustle.
Yeah,
Going back to the spinning plates.
yeah,
Most definitely.
yeah.
Now, when you first started to post music on SoundCloud in the earlier days,
Yes, yeah.
when, like, how did you know? What was the first song that you posted to SoundCloud?
The
Do you
first one
remember?
I posted to SoundCloud was actually under my actual name,
Okay,
and that was like 2016.
okay, okay.
So that was about 6 years ago. And then when I started, I wrote a lot of songs, and then I wrote, and then I wanted to post, and one had a sample on it,
Hmm.
and I didn't want to, so and I wanted to test out the market, you know.
Yep, yep.
I didn't know how my friends, family would feel because I hid my writing music as a secret for a lot of my life.
Okay.
So when I wanted it to come out, I was like, you know, I'm just gonna post it on SoundCloud. It takes 5 minutes.
Yep,
So I
yep.
did post it on SoundCloud, and that actually got a lot of good feedback. I was surprised. And then I got DistroKid, and then posted my music through DistroKid. And I think I ended up taking some of those songs down just because I feel like I'm in a different plane in terms of level of quality.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Of course,
but
of
I'm
course.
also grateful for that journey because that allowed me to build on my musical skill in terms of writing music.
I hear that. I hear that. So now you've been posting music to SoundCloud, and it got to a point where obviously someone was starting to take you seriously.
Yeah.
And I found out about you through public,
Yes.
obviously,
Yes. Of course. Yeah.
and because of the reputation of Mandem, like Gavin Shepherd, if they put their stamp on something, I immediately go, okay, this is something I have to pay attention to,
Yeah. Of
simply
course.
because as tastemakers, they know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
that's what made me pay attention. I'm like, oh, yo, they've co-signed this guy.
Yes.
Okay, I need to pay attention
Yeah.
to the honest guy.
Yeah.
And it was like, yo, the sound is refreshing. We both share a love of neo soul. I find
Yes.
that neo soul is, it came at a time when R&B needed it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We really needed it to move a little bit away from, the bling blingy type stuff,
Yeah.
and try to take it back to something a little more, you know,
The soul. Yeah, of
that you
course. Yes.
feel, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm happy to see the influence of neo soul still very much prevalent in
Yeah.
2022, not just,
Yeah.
and especially through artists like yourself.
Yeah. Neo Soul's I think it's the forsaken child of like R&B,
Hmm.
but it's like it is the soul of R&B, you know. I
Yeah,
think it like some of these like people like Music Soul Child, D'Angelo, Erica Badu, they almost gave, it was like I think before then R&B was very pretty, you know,
yeah,
and people weren't just looking for pretty anymore. People were looking for a little bit of grit, you know,
yes,
and as just as the grit was starting, I think neo soul kind of gave a little bit of just a slight touch of grit. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like it wasn't just this big orchestric production, like you know the
Hmm.
way, like the Whitney Houston's, the Mariah Carey's, the big production, but
Exactly.
it was almost like
Yeah.
touching the soul. And neo soul, I think, is it's just it's I compare it to like country. You know, country is
Mhm.
very like in terms of content wise, it's very relatable and very vulnerable too. You know,
Yes,
and vulnerable from a real place, not just from like fake emotion.
yes, yes. I think the one quality that neo soul has, and as I mentioned, still very much prevalent in a lot of artists that you hear right now, is
Yes.
rawness. It has a
Oh,
rawness to it.
yes, it is.
Yeah, exactly. Which takes us to the new EP. The new EP, Arose by Any Other Name.
Yes.
The influence of neo soul is very prevalent on this, but the one thing that it has differed slightly from what we heard recently,
Yeah.
you got funky with it.
Yes. Yeah.
I
So
mean, I'm not saying you were like a balladeer or anything like that, but
yeah.
you got that quiet storm groove on lock.
Yeah.
You know what I
And,
mean?
and and that's on purpose. Like I'm trying my best. So just because I manage myself and I can manage everything myself, it's allowed me to sit back and also think I want to make something that's soulful and like that R&B lovers love. But
Yeah.
I also started to discover funk music, and funk is also a bit of like forgotten. You know, it's like disco
Hmm.
came out of funk and then everybody forgot about funk. And it's like, and I started to fall in love with it. It's the same, it's the same ingredients I used to make it. It's just one is faster. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
one is has a groove. And I never want to be the artist that people just listen to for one mood. You know, a lot of times people tell me, or I've been up to me like your music is best on a date because it starts out fun and then it ends pretty sensual, you know. So a lot of times people would tell me they would, if they had a partner over, they would play just the EP from start to finish. And while it was summertime, I wanted to put music out that you can groove to, you could be outside, you could be
Hmm.
on a road trip to,
Yeah.
and it could play on the radio, you know. But it's that EP, Arose by Any Other Name, is actually the first half of a two-sided project.
Aha.
Yeah, so
Okay.
but I didn't want to release the whole project in the summertime because I feel like this is the first full summer since COVID, you know. I wanted
Yeah.
to be able to give an offering that was more upbeat, and then, you
I
know, in
hear
the
that.
fall,
Yeah, I
be
hear
able to
that.
release the more slow stuff. And that's pretty much the comprehension of what my sound is and is going to be. It's always going to be a bit of upbeat, but still maintaining the soul and then the soul music, you know.
So if you're dropping the second part in the fall, are
Yes.
we to assume then that the content that it's going to be dropping then will be a little more moody?
Yes, of course. Of course, yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. So the whole project is called How to Make Love. And that's gonna be like my second official debut, like my second sophomore project. I kind of consider Rose by Any Other Name as a mixtape.
Okay.
But all those three songs are gonna be in there. And I wrote a story and I put the whole songs, like all my whole project as a story. So it's
Nice.
a story of a boy meets girl. Um And so it starts off Lost to the Summer, which is about having fun and almost having these relationships that are kind of loose, but you're still attached to them. And then it goes to like Fight the Feeling, where you meet a girl and you actually goes to Choose Your Lover. Choose Your Lover is where you meet a girl and you're like almost like, you know, when you're trying to have fun as a young man and you meet a woman that's kind of almost like blindsiding you, and now you find yourself wanting to spend more time with this person. And then it goes to Fight the Feeling, when you realize you like this person and you're trying to fight all these feelings that you have for them because you feel like you're losing grip of the power dynamic. And then then the other half becomes in the wintertime for the other parts of the song. Yeah.
Nice.
So I wanted to be able to write a concept project that, you know, tells a story, but each song can live on its own. So my strategy has always been to release music as singles. So I'm pretty much in phase of releasing the whole album as a single, and then putting it together. But it still makes sense. I didn't want to release everything as singles and then put a project out and then there's no cohesion. So I wrote a whole album that's cohesive, and then I'm gonna release everything as a single.
Nice. Well, you know, from since we met, man, I told you since we met, man, you have got it going on. The sound that you are presenting.
Oh, thank you.
And the sound that you are sharing is phenomenal. This is most definitely, I think, sorely needed in the genre right now. So, man, I look forward to more coming from you. Okay.
Oh yeah.
The EP is streaming right now on all streaming platforms.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Are there any visuals that are going to be dropping?
Yeah, for the last song, there's going to be a visual, and I'm so excited about this song.
Nice.
I always say I am trying to do my best attempt while still maintaining my own uniqueness, but my best attempt at music that I grew up on. And, you know, so even when I wrote the song Baby Mother, it was my attempt at writing a D'Angelo song.
Right.
When I wrote Can't Wait, I was trying to write, you know, like almost something like genuine-ish, you know, something with the hard drums, like it's almost like a Timbaland beat, but still R&B. And this last song this is my best attempt at Endless Love or One Sweet Day. I wrote this song with this girl with the most amazing voice, who goes by Naja, and like the song is gonna blow you away when you hear it. But I've been taking a step back for the last couple of months. That's why I released the project, just so it can give me the time to perfect the rest of the projects. But as I started to perfect the rest of the project, I wrote more songs. So even though I'm releasing the project in October, top of the year, I'm going to be releasing more music. And I like to keep myself, you know, I like to make sure that I'm always releasing music, that I'm always keeping people who love my music engaged, you know. So
I hear you, man.
Yeah.
I hear you, man. Yo, I hate to say that we're at the end of the segment, but this would most definitely not be the last time we get you on.